Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, it is brought to you this hour by the Atlantic City Airport. Plan your summer vacation now. Spirit Airlines is offering nonstop flights from Atlantic City International Airport to Boston, Atlanta, San Juan, Miami, and other exciting destinations. Visit Spirit.com. I'm Mike Gill. Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast is with me here on the day that the Eagles OTAs allowed the media in. We heard from Nick Sirianni. We heard from, Nick Sirianni spoke with Sal Powell. We had Sal on in the first hour, but we did hear from Shane Steichen. We did hear from Jalen Hurts, and we heard from a variety of other Eagles. We'll get into that. But, man, a surprise firing by the Phillies today, Adam Caplan. And if I know you, you could probably tie Joe Girardi's firing to some Eagles firings of the past. I mean, there's a lot of similarities to some things that have gone down across the street.
Yeah, Mike, it's interesting. Good to be with you. Yeah, living in the area most of my life, unless I was away for school. You know, I kind of lived all the firings of all of our sports. I'm old enough to remember Fred Shiro, who won Stanley Cups. Then it didn't work. The situation with Matty Gukas with the Sixers and how the team underachieved after Billy Cunningham suddenly retired. After Dick Vermeil left, Marion Campbell and Rich Kotite and everything we all. If you're in this area and you've kind of lived it one way or the other, then we tied back to a little bit more of the modern-day Eagles. When I actually worked for the Eagles, Mike, I don't know if you know this, I actually was working for the Eagles for 3 years, 11, 12, and 13 for Dave Spadaro. And I remember being in the Eagles building in Andy Reid's last year and how miserable it was. I love the job that I have, but I felt bad for these coaches. It was just really miserable for them. It's not cool to be around people knowing that they know that they're in trouble. And I think with Joe Girardi and seeing how the team severely underachieved, it could not have been a surprise to him. I mean, I heard Dave Dombrowski's press conference. Now, you led off with our talk here saying it was surprising. I'm not that surprised, to be honest with you. Is it a minor surprise? Yeah, but it's not a major surprise. The team severely underachieved. Now, if you look at all of the Eagles firings, whether it's Andy Reid, that one had to be. That was, I hate to call it a mercy firing. It was Andy had to go, and they were done with him. They loved Andy, and obviously he's a terrific coach, a Hall of Fame coach someday. But he had to go. Mike, the Doug Peterson one was not about performance. Remember, they won the Super Bowl in 17. They also made the playoffs in 18, 19, 20 was a disaster. They wanted to come back with Doug, but Doug, the way we reported at the time, and it's pretty much held up. If Doug would have made certain changes on his coaching staff, he'd still be the head coach. But the Girardi one, of all the recent firings in Philadelphia sports, I can't speak to the Flyer stuff. The Brett Brown one, they underachieved. Okay, let's go to the Sixers, Mike. Brett Brown, what did he do? He underachieved severely. They should have been better. And Joe Girardi, I know this is in the regular season, a quarter of the way through. There's a lot of time left for them to turn this around. This would be like kind of firing a head coach after 4 games, I would say.
You look at, because you look at a situation where Girardi, it seems as if the team was just lifeless, didn't have the voice was just kind of getting tuned out, it sounds like. Even Bryce Harper was asked moments ago. A lot of times you get asked, we feel bad, that's on us. Right. He said, no, shared responsibility. It's as much on us as it is them. So it sounded as if they were maybe just tuning him out. The question I would have turning it to football and coaching in general is, what is the shelf life of these guys? I mean, even if you're like one of the best in your profession, it seems like Joe Girardi won a World Series. Doc Rivers has won an NBA title. And it seems that Andy Reid was the best coach. What are the shelf life of these guys anymore?
It's a great question. So Andy Reid was 14 years, which, when you look at it, obviously way more good than bad. I mean, it ended poorly. Everyone around the situation when Andy Reid was fired would say that the team had no energy, a lot of going through the motions. You remember what happened the year before that, the so-called Dream Team, which was an abomination where they just signed guys coming out of the lockout left and right, and seemingly every move they made turned out to be bad or not as good as they'd hoped or not good enough to get them anywhere. And whereas in 17, every move seemed to be right. So when you look at it, Mike, this situation here, we'll turn it back to the Eagles. I think that Nick Sirianni will get. Look, they made the playoffs the first year, and what I want to get to. You mentioned Shane Steichen. I want to get to what he said today. Wow, okay, there was something he dropped in there. He never reveals anything. All of a sudden, he revealed something pretty significant, which we need to talk about. But I would say, to answer your question, and I asked Joe Banner this. Joe said in the second year you have to show progress. Well, if you don't show it in the first year, like if you have a bad first year, you have to show some progress. Because Joe fired Rob Chudzinski when he was the Browns head coach after 1 year. He was so bad they knew it would never work, so they got rid of him, which is not a good reflection on Joe in terms of firing a guy after 1 year. But you don't want to keep a guy when you know he's not the guy, and that turned out to be the right decision. Well, Nick Sirianni's probably overachieved, Mike, to make the playoffs the first year. So now moving this forward with the roster being much better, or not much, but better, it's clearly better. I don't want to say significantly better, but certainly better, particularly in certain areas. The expectations are around the team. They're going to be better. Now, how much better? We'll see.
Yeah. You mentioned Steichen, and he did say something, and it kind of ties into the coach because we all just assumed, hey, he made this adjustment. He changed the way he called plays. Was it the coach changing the way he called plays, or did he change the play caller?
Yeah. Okay. So on our show Inside the Birds, Moshe and I had Joe Banner on last year, the Eagles president. I'm not sure exactly how it came up, but Joe said that the media completely did not know that. You know how like Andy Reid said, well, I guess it would get out, or maybe he said it. He handed over the play calling to Marty Mornhinweg. Joe said he lost track of how many times Andy handed it off to Marty Mornhinweg. The media never knew about it. He said dozens of times. Think about that. Of all the games they coached together, there were so many times that he gave it away that we'll get to why I think it happened in a second, but Andy would do it sometimes when the defense was going well. You remember what happened when Juan Castillo became the defense coordinator, which was obviously a major problem, or when the coaches were having some issues with each other on defense. Jim Washburn and Castillo had issues, and there were just issues on defense, or when he wanted to take a broader view of their offense and let Marty Mornhinweg call it so he could actually go over to some of the position coaches while they're coaching and observe, whatever the case may be. So let's look at, well, why would Shane Steichen admit? I don't know why he did. I mean, I listened to the whole press conference. It was just interesting how he revealed in the middle of last season that he took over the play calling, and he confirmed he's going to be the play caller of the season. Now, what Shane said, and he's right, Sirianni clearly was still involved. I mean, it's not like he said, all right, you call the plays, I'm not going to be involved. That's not true. Mm-hmm. But he absolutely called the plays. I mean, I believe that. Now,
so what do you think that means going forward?
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to get to. So we saw them become a running team under Steichen. Now, it also, and again, we don't know exactly what week. To be clear, Steichen did not say what week. But it really started against the Raiders. If you remember, they got blown out, but they came out running the football, and they ran it well, but they got blown out, and that's when Miles Sanders got hurt. And you saw what they did against Detroit and other teams where they annihilated and ran all over Detroit, and they became the NFL's best running team. That's not what they want. Okay, let's call it like it is. They do not want to be a running team. They didn't make the trade for A.J. Brown, and you heard Sirianni and the GM Howie Roseman talk about this in their dual press conference in the spring, that they want more pass targets for Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. Okay, you know what that really meant? They want to throw the ball more. Let's call it like it is. So to move this forward on your question, they're going to throw the ball more. So Steichen is going to have to call more pass plays. And by the way, he didn't do a bad job when he was the Chargers OC calling them. And remember, they worked together. They worked together for the Chargers many years ago. So I get it, but I'm fascinated to see, and we'll find out eventually, what will change in terms of formations. And throwing the ball is one thing, throwing the ball more is one thing, but how do they do it? And that's what we'd like to know.
Interestingly enough, because Jalen Hurts commented on the fact that he's going to have the same play caller for 2 years in a row, He actually had two different play callers apparently last year then, right?
Yeah, I think the continuity, Mike. Mike, I think the continuity is great because we've talked about this on our show that if you want to be fair to Hurts, we could talk about the inaccuracy and at times how uneven he is, and sometimes how guys run wide open and he doesn't throw it to him or doesn't throw it to him accurately. I think some of it is probably the way the coaches explain to me sometimes is you're thinking as a quarterback because you're not totally comfortable with the offense. You have to go back to his high school. I mean, he has rarely had the same play caller back to back. So the hope is, from an Eagles standpoint, he just gets himself together. He's more accurate.
Yeah.
Because with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert now not having to deal with Ertz anymore for a full season, and the better depth at wide receiver, and now Quez Watkins definitely doesn't have to be a starter. They have a better pass target group. The offense will only improve, though, if Hurts improves, and that's kind of what we look at going forward.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, Inside the Birds podcast. Drops Monday morning, 6 a.m. The new one will be out. He did mention today, he was asked about right guard. He said, we're working through that, but he mentioned Sayamala is back healthy, and that's the only guy he mentioned. Should I read any tea leaves that Sayamala is the favorite?
Well, he would be the favorite because he's been starting. I mean, he was started on the left side. I know right guard is new for him. I don't usually read into this too much in early June, but he would definitely be the favorite because of his playing experience. But the thing is, he and Jack Driscoll have had major injury histories. So he didn't deny it's a competition, by the way. So let's just call it a competition. Sayamala's got to show that he could play that position. Now he's making $4.975 million this season. That's a lot to. If he doesn't win the job, this is just me, my opinion, knowing how this stuff works. He either takes a pay cut or he's traded.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see them cutting him. I remember you asked me that they would only cut him if they couldn't move him, and he's good enough. I mean, $4.97 million is a very fair salary for a starting guard. Actually, it's very good for a starting guard, but it's not for a backup. That's unacceptable. So let's see how it plays out.
Right, and one thing is they do have a lot of talent on this offensive line, and to have a guy like Sayamala, if he doesn't win the job, that shows you how good this line really is. Because I thought he did a pretty good job at left guard, and obviously they like Dickerson at that spot. Little interesting that Sayamala was he ever considered to be the center moving forward?
Well, when we first started doing the show, as you just set it up, we actually put that out there, and then we ran it by a team source who said, no, that's not correct. Yes, when we drafted him, we thought that he could be Kelsey's replacement, but and some of this we think came from what Stalin had said, that Stalin wanted to just see how it played out with Dickerson before they made a decision. And Stalin does not like moving players unless he has to. That's part of this, and what we were told pretty strongly around this time last year is that don't go with that. Just say that it's to be determined, and it got determined. They're not moving Dickerson. And Cam Jurgens will be Kelsey's replacement. Right guard's open, and that's that. Now, one other thing I'll add to this as an addendum. Lane Johnson's obviously the right tackle for this season for as long as he wants to play. The question is how much longer does he want to play? And who would he? They always think so far in advance here. Would Jack Driscoll be his replacement? That's another situation to look at.
Adam, we had asked maybe about a month or so ago about the role of the owner's son, Julian, getting involved with the team. Well, we now know what his role will be moving forward here. Julian Lurie has a new title. He takes a role in the front office as the business and football operations strategy, whatever that is.
Yeah, and we don't know. It's funny. So Jeff and Moshe and I put out on our Monday show last Monday. We said, "Hey, listen, here's the story. We're hearing Julian Lurie's going to be involved. He has a office in the building. We don't know what his title would be, and as you said, the Athletic was the ones who put it out. Business and operations strategy. We don't know what that is. Like we often joke when it comes to this team that don't worry about titles. It's really about what they do. The titles mean next to nothing. So what we do know is he's bringing in an analytical role. Alec Halaby is a guy we had reported on Monday is going to get a promotion along with John Ferrari. What we didn't know is what Albert Breer reported, that the only difference that Albert had in our reporting was that I can't believe this, but it's happening. It's definitely true. Alec Halby's going to be an assistant GM. That was a little bit of a surprise. Now, I know we make fun of these titles, but in this case, the fact that the analytics director is going to get not a director of player personnel title, which is lower than an assistant GM title. He's getting an assistant GM title, Mike. That means he's going to have a heavy say in who gets drafted. I'm not saying he's not picking the players, to be clear. Mm-hmm. But he's going to have more of a say because, yes, they're an analytical building. Well, if you're moving this guy up, you're not worried about another team taking him. Sometimes the Eagles and other teams move guys up so they don't get poached. I don't see that as the case here. Because Julian Lurie now has got a role in the front office, that his close personal friend, Alec Halby, got a promotion.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. My only issue with it, and I talked about this Monday before anyone knew anything, we wanted to get this out there, so we talked about it. I know we're not fans when we do these shows, but we're observers. Not only do we do reporting, we put our analyst hat on when we think it's appropriate. I don't know that this is a good thing because we've already been asked about this. We got a bunch of emails. We can't get to them all, so I could address a couple here. It could potentially be a bad thing if the tape, Mike, if tape study is not the number one criteria for player evaluation for this football team, it's going to be a problem. There's not even the Browns, who some people around the league are calling what the Eagles are doing very Browns-like under Sashi Brown, who's now with the Ravens as the team president. And by the way, they went 1-31 under Sashi Brown under a total analytics model. Mm. If they go total analytics here, which I don't see happening, I know there's rumors, but I doubt that's the case. But it's certainly going to be even more analytical. But if tape is not the number one criteria still, this could be a bad thing because they had the last 2 years, Mike. They've had a really good thing going. 2 good drafts. Last year certainly is off to a good start, very good start. This year, in terms of our comments that we got from sources around the league, very good in terms of what the draft looks like on paper, and we'll see how these guys play. Very good free agency. Everything looks good. They made the playoffs. Roster's good. Why change it? Is what people around the league ask. And fans, by the way, should be asking that if they haven't already. Why are you making all these changes when you got a good thing going?
Adam Caplan, the Inside the Birds podcast, will be out Monday morning at 6 a.m. Check out all the Inside the Birds platform shows, Q&A, Inside the Birds, and, of course, we're going to be at training camp before we know it. Adam will be back next week. We'll continue our division previews with Andrew on Thursdays. Jeff is back Monday. Plenty more on Football at 4. Adam, have a great rest of your weekend, man.
You too. Thank you.
All right, there goes Adam Caplan here on the Sports Best. That's Football at 4.